She appeared out of nowhere, claiming to be Madeleine McCann, and the entire world was in shock. Could it be that after all these years, the mystery was finally solved? But when the DNA tests were released, the truth was even more surprising than anyone could have imagined. What really happened? And what does this result mean for the original case? A woman emerges from nowhere and claims to be Madeleine McCann. The internet explodes. Headlines appear all over the world. And for a brief moment, the possibility of a resolution for one of the greatest criminal mysteries seems real. But then, something unexpected happens. What was supposed to be a definitive revelation transforms into a new layer of uncertainty. This woman, Julia Faustina, not only claims to be Madeleine, but also provides details that make many believe it could be true. She points out physical similarities, mentions vague memories of a troubled childhood, and insists that she has always felt that something was wrong with her identity. The public is divided. Some support her, saying that her resemblance to Madeleine is striking. Others see it as a big hoax, yet another illusion in an investigation that has already taken so many twists and turns. Then, the moment everyone had been waiting for arrives, DNA tests are carried out, and the result is astonishing. However, not in the way everyone had imagined. What these tests revealed not only confirmed that Julia is not Madeleine McCann, but also brought to light an even more disturbing truth. If Julia is not Madeleine, then who is she really? Why did she make this claim? And most importantly, what does this story say about the Madeleine McCann case itself? Had Julia Faustina only been debunked by DNA, the story might have ended there. But what the tests revealed opened up a new path of doubts and suspicions. She wasn't Madeleine, but what was discovered about her true origins was also a shock. The tests showed that Julia has Polish ancestry, with no genetic trace linking her to the McCann family. But if she is just an ordinary woman with an ordinary past, why was she so convinced that she was Madeleine? The answer might be more complex than it seems. Some theories suggest that Julia may have been manipulated by third parties who wanted to use her story to attract attention. Others indicate that she may have suffered childhood trauma that led her to create an alternate reality in which she was the missing girl. And then there is another, even more sinister question. Could it be that Julia was encouraged to pose as Madeleine for reasons that go beyond mere media attention? The McCann case has always been surrounded by conspiracy theories, hidden interests, and dubious investigations. It wouldn't be strange to imagine that someone could try to foster false hope to divert attention from something bigger. Whatever the truth, the most frightening part is that this twist didn't bring us any closer to solving the case. It only served as another distraction, and perhaps that is exactly what some people wanted. Madeleine McCann's disappearance was never just a police case. It became a global phenomenon, with the media, governments, and even public figures getting involved in ways that did not always seem aimed at finding the truth. From the beginning, there were flaws in the investigation, abrupt changes in the course of the case, and decisions that appeared more political than investigative. With each new clue, another diversion emerged. And now, with this woman claiming to be Madeleine and later being debunked, once again the public's attention was diverted from the central question: where is Madeleine McCann? If we look back in time, we see a worrying pattern. Whenever a new theory or suspect emerges, the case is thrust back into the spotlight for a few days, only to fade into obscurity again. And the most important question remains unanswered. Now, with this new distraction, the public was once again led to believe that a major revelation was about to occur, only to be quickly and coldly debunked. The case returned to square one. But was this just another mistake? Or is something bigger happening behind the scenes? The truth is that every distraction takes the focus away from what really matters. And while this is happening, the question remains in the air. Will we ever know what really happened on that night in 2007? Perhaps the revelation about Julia Faustina is just another chapter in a long story of deceptions. But what if behind it all, there is something we have yet to see? When Julia Faustina appeared claiming to be Madeleine McCann, the world stopped. The story, which for years seemed unsolvable, suddenly gained a new chapter. Social media exploded. Headlines ran around the world. Experts were divided. Could it really be true? The most intriguing detail was Julia's own conviction. Scars similar to Madeleine's, and a persistent feeling that something didn't add up in her story. Some side-by-side images of the two went viral, and many began to believe that perhaps it was possible. Madeleine's parents, who had long avoided public appearances, found themselves back in the spotlight. What did they think about this? Was it false hope or a new pathway to finally finding her? Then the big moment arrived. DNA tests were performed. Expectations were sky high. For the first time in years, it seemed that the case might have a definitive answer. But when the results came out, the shock was even greater. Julia was not Madeleine. The confirmation was direct and left no room for doubt. But instead of closing the case, this revelation raised even more disturbing questions. If she wasn't Madeleine, why was she so convinced otherwise? Had someone manipulated her? And more importantly, did this revelation take us further away from the truth about what really happened on that night in 2007? The most curious part was not the fact that Julia wasn't Madeleine, but what the DNA revealed about her true identity. The test confirmed that she was Polish, with no genetic connection to the MCCANN family. That should have ended the matter, right? But something still didn't make sense. If she truly believed she was Madeleine, it indicated a frightening possibility. Could she herself be a victim of an unresolved mystery? Some began to suspect that Julia might have been kidnapped as a child and that her hazy memories were from a traumatic past. Others, however, believed that it was all a carefully planned scam, that Julia had been encouraged by third parties to create this story and gain notoriety. But what would be the motive? Media attention? A diversion from the real Madeleine investigation? What seemed to be a definitive answer ended up becoming yet another enigma. Julia disappeared from social media for a while, but the impact of her claim remained, and one doubt lingered in the air. Was this story just another distraction that pushed the truth about Madeleine McCann even further away? And what if it was all intentional? When the DNA result was released, the shock was immediate. The answer everyone had been waiting for not only confirmed that Julia Faustina was not Madeleine McCann, but it also raised even more questions about the entire story. The test proved that she was Polish, with no genetic link to the McCann family. That should have closed the case, but in reality, it was the beginning of a new mystery. The public's reaction was divided. Many felt anger, believing that it was all just a desperate bid for attention. Others, however, began to wonder, if Julia wasn't Madeleine, then why was she so sure that her identity had been hidden from her? The press, which had previously covered every detail of the possible discovery, quickly shifted its tone. The narrative moved from hope to distrust. Could it have all been a scam? Had Julia been manipulated by someone? Or did she really believe what she said? The young woman began to isolate herself from social media after the negative backlash. But before disappearing completely, she left some worrying statements. She said she still didn't have all the answers about her own past, and that she felt as if she had been deceived her entire life. This raised another even more intriguing question. Could Julia also be a victim of a secret that has not yet been revealed? Her biological parents insisted that there was nothing unusual about her history, yet some contradictions arose. Julia mentioned having no clear memories of her childhood, and that her family refused to talk about certain periods of her life. This led some people to wonder if she might be another missing child whose original identity has yet to be discovered. In any case, the truth is that the DNA revelation did not end the mystery, it only transformed it into something completely different. After the DNA results, Julia Faustina tried to step away from the spotlight, but the interest in her story was far from over. Some people began to investigate her past, and theories emerged that perhaps she had been McCann case. The idea seemed absurd, but it was not unprecedented. Other famous cases have shown that missing children can grow up without ever knowing who they really are. Some well-known examples include J.C. Dugard and Camilla Mobley, who were abducted in childhood and raised by their captors without ever suspecting the truth. If Julia truly believed that her identity had been hidden, was it merely an illusion created by past traumas, or was there something deeper at work? Another detail that drew attention was the involvement of a medium in the case. Julia was being advised by a psychic who claimed to have received spiritual messages about her connection to Madeleine McCann. This detail led many to doubt the veracity of the story, as it sounded more like a plot out of a conspiracy theory than a legitimate investigation. But one thing was undeniable. Julia Faustina's case completely diverted the focus from the search for Madeleine McCann. For weeks, the entire world talked only about this woman, while the real investigation into Madeleine's whereabouts was left in the background. This raises an uncomfortable question. Was this story just a distraction? While the world was focused on Julia, could important information have gone unnoticed? Whether it was a mistake or a strategy, no one can say for sure. But one thing is clear, the Madeleine McCann case remains unsolved, and this new chapter only reinforces just how far we still are from the truth. The DNA result is out. Julia was not Madeleine, But what seemed like the end of this story actually opened up new questions. If she wasn't the missing girl, then who was she? And why was she so convinced that she could be? The reaction was immediate. The police ruled out any connection between her and the McCann case, but doubts lingered. Julia said that she had always had gaps in her childhood, that her memories did not match those of her family, and that she had been a victim of abuse and neglect. This raises an even deeper question. Could Julia be another missing child? It wouldn't be the first time someone grows up not knowing their true identity. Cases like that of Carlina White, who was kidnapped as a baby and raised by another woman, prove that such stories do happen. If Julia is not Madeleine, there may still be another truth behind her origins. Moreover, this story revealed something concerning: how much the public wants quick solutions to unsolved mysteries. The McCann case has become one of the world's greatest criminal enigmas, and any clue, even the most unlikely, turns into a global event. But does this rush for answers end up hindering rather than helping? And while the focus was on Julia, what really happened to Madeleine remained unanswered. Now that this possibility has been ruled out, an important question arises. Does the Madeleine McCann case still have any hope of being solved? For years, the authorities have followed various leads, some legitimate, others completely unfounded. But this latest twist serves as a warning. Is the excessive focus on unlikely theories diverting attention from the clues that really matter? Criminal investigation experts point out that often, public opinion pressures the police to follow media-driven leads, while the true suspects end up being ignored. This is what happened in the case of the Zodiac Killer, where false confessions and mysterious letters diverted the investigation for decades. If the McCann case still has any chance of being solved, it lies in science. Advances in DNA analysis, such as forensic genealogy, have already helped solve old crimes. This is how the Golden State Killer, a criminal who terrorized California for decades, was identified through modern genetic testing. If the police applied these methods to the McCann case, perhaps the true culprit would have already been found. But is there genuine interest in solving this mystery? Or has this story grown too big to be unraveled? With every false lead, more time is lost. And meanwhile, the main question remains unanswered. Where is Madeleine McCann? Even after all these years, the Madeleine McCann case continues to be one of today's greatest mysteries. The episode involving Julia brought to light just how much the world still cares about this story, and how any new piece of information, no matter how small, creates a massive impact. But in the end, everything that happened only reinforced something that perhaps many already suspected. The real culprit behind Madeleine's disappearance has never been found. Julia was not Madeleine, but that does not mean her story isn't tragic in its own right. The fact that someone grows up feeling that her identity may have been stolen, carrying doubts about her past, reveals a bigger problem. How many other people might be living with the same uncertainty? Could there be other missing children who supposed Madeleine appeared? In 2017, a young British woman also claimed to be the missing girl, but her story did not progress. And just as before, the big question remains: could this case one day be solved? The truth is that while investigations focus on dubious clues, time is passing. Each year, new technologies emerge, new forensic techniques are developed, yet it seems there is a real lack of will to apply all this to the McCann case. Why? With the advances in DNA and forensic genealogy, many old crimes have been solved. The Golden State Killer was identified in this way, as were countless other cases that seemed impossible to solve. If there are DNA samples in the McCann case, why not use them in the best possible way? Could it be that the truth is much more complicated than we imagine? If there is any chance of ending this mystery, it does not lie in sudden appearances or media theories. It lies in science, in reanalyzing the facts, and most importantly, in the decision to truly seek the truth. As time passes, something strange happens with stories like this. They cease to be merely criminal cases and transform into cultural phenomena discussed by millions of people around the world. And when that happens, resolution can become nearly impossible. The McCann case fuels the media, spawns documentaries, books, endless debates. If tomorrow Madeleine were to be found, this whole machine of speculation would come to an end. And perhaps that explains why some investigations never advance as they should. After all, unsolved mysteries are often more lucrative than cases that are closed. Over the years, we have seen this happen with other famous cases. The Zodiac Killer, Jack the Ripper, all enveloped in decades of theories and speculations, but without a concrete resolution. And could it be that Madeleine's disappearance is following the same path? Many experts believe that if this case had happened anonymously, without media exposure, it might have already been solved. But when the entire world is watching, every step becomes a political decision. And meanwhile, the McCann family continues to live this nightmare, without answers, without closure. But what do you think? Can the truth about Madeleine McCann still be discovered? Or has it already become one of those mysteries that will never be solved? If you've read this far, comment, "I want the truth," so I know you followed this investigation to the end. And if you want to see more real mysteries being analyzed seriously and in detail, don't miss the next video. In it, we will talk about another case surrounded by unanswered questions that could change everything we know about criminal investigations. See you there?